Welcome, everyone. All right. Hello, everyone. We had a little bit of a technical difficulties because StreamYard and YouTube completely changed their setup. And so I had to try and make it work for the last 15 minutes. But I think now it should be working. Let me just confirm now. It's always difficult having technical challenges. But I think this is good. So it's the end of the year. It's December 2025. There's another 13 days of the year. It's been quite a wild ride this year, I have to say. And that's why I felt like it would be really important for us to actually do a session together where I give you guys some highlights and some insights from my side on what we've achieved this year, how we see the overall market, because there's obviously a lot of things that are out of our control, and then really talk a little bit about IOTA's positioning and what we want to achieve in 2026, right? Because this is also about giving you guys an outlook, and so you all understand what we are focused on and how we are going to move IOTA forward, because that is all that matters. And that is where we have the conviction. That is where we have dedicated our last 10 years to. And that is where I really believe where IOTA can make a difference, especially even in this market, right? And so I think there's a lot to talk about. We'll also answer some of your questions and go into that. Let's talk a little bit about the market right now. I think there's no denial about it that this is probably one of the most challenging periods in crypto history. I was trying to reflect on this today, and I felt like, yeah, like there's sort of like similarities with the 2018 bear market. For those of you that were around back then, right? Like 2017 was this really huge spike in the market. Where obviously IOTA was one of the main winners. And then 2018 was this really harsh bear market that came suddenly in some regards, but that also, I think it felt like an existential questioning where people in this space really started to question, hey, like, what is it? Is crypto never gonna come back? And this wasn't just portrayed in the media. I think this was really like the general sentiment that was being felt by people in the community, and IOTA and Ethereum and other communities. And I think that just really shows you that there is like this kind of same sentiment that we have felt back then in 2018. It's sort of being felt right now, right, in 2025. Because there is sort of like this existential questioning right now. And I think there's also some level of exhaustion with many people in this space, especially those that have been with us for a long time, where it is about, hey, what's this really it? Like, is this the end of crypto? Should we all go into stocks? Should we all go into silver and gold? And did we really not achieve the ultimate goal of getting crypto adopted in the real world? I think emotions are always more severe in the moment when things happen, right? Like, one of the most important lessons that I learned in my life is like, nothing is ever as good or as bad as it sounds, right? Because there's always the truth is always in the middle. And you need to take a step back and really reflect on the broader picture and try and assess where you stand right now. Let's look at the good side, right? Crypto is actually getting adopted in the real world. I have never seen this many adoption cases being driven by big institutional players like BlackRock, like JP Morgan, who are actually tokenizing assets on chain, who are actually active, participating on chain. Well, this is exactly what we've always dreamed of, where the real world, where the existing financial system is actually participating on chain. And they're not just doing this in some permission networks like what happened in 2018. They're actually doing it on live networks, on public permissionless networks, right? There's so much adoption happening around stablecoins, right, where people are actually able to transfer them, use them to pay people around the world. We're using it in Africa, right, to pay farmers, to pay traders, to pay miners. And there's no technology that's as great as blockchain as the underlying rail to enable this value transfer to happen around the world almost instantly, right? And so the adoption is happening. I think what is happening right now is there's like this broad dislocation in the market where, like, we have to be very honest here, right? For me, one of the most difficult periods in crypto was probably in 2022, 2023, where at one point I was just thinking like, hey, like, what the fuck am I doing here, right? Because it felt like this entire market was forcing you to be something you don't want to be, right? And what the market demanded back then was to drive this speculative wave of creating new bubbles, creating new valueless tokens, right? Like as somebody, as Anton, our team always says, it was about creating shit farms, right? Where you create one token, you airdrop the token on another token, and then you continue playing that game in the hope that at the end of the day, there will be some value being generated, right? And all, like, the game of crypto was this very, like, as I said, speculative but short-term focused game where it was not about creating real tangible value, solving real problems, but where it was really about fueling the bubble, and where it was about fueling the speculation around it, right? And like the introduction of meme coins, the introduction of AI agents that were supposed to change the world. And what ultimately happened then is, like, crypto became a game of value extraction. And this was the game that was being played for the last 2 or 3 years, where it was really just about maximizing value extraction, right? Whether it's new layer 1 protocols where the founders just wanted to launch the token and have a quick exit, where it was about venture capitalists forcing the projects to launch at a high, fully diluted value to try and maximize value extraction on the way down of the token, or where it was about the KOLs and influencers propping up and pumping up tokens and then forcing them to retail investors, and in the end, hopefully not being the last one holding the token, right? And I think this is exactly what brought us to where we are today, right? This is why the stock market has been up, and this is why crypto has been down, because there is this general exhaustion in the market where this value extraction game has finally ended, and right, and the big end of it in a very big spectacular fashion is what happened on the 10th of October, where it was about, we still have to really find out what happened there, right? And I would really love to see some transparency, like what happened on Binance and other exchanges, because ultimately the market really broke, right? Billions of dollars of people's money was being liquidated on that particular day, right? A lot of leverage was flushed out, not just from retail investors, but also from institutional investors who were not prepared for something to happen that is not supposed to happen, right? Like, prices are not supposed to dislocate so quickly, because ultimately there was some vulnerability somewhere in the system, right? And then what happened is, like, all this leverage was washed out, meaning people lost money, right? And so I think this is really the end of the crypto game as we know it. And I feel like the market right now is obviously, like, the entire crypto market has been punished. And for me, as the founder of IOTA and running IOTA for the last 10 years, and seeing all this amazing adoption that we're pushing forward in Africa and the UK and Southeast Asia and other countries, it is very disheartening to obviously see that the IOTA is being treated as one of those speculative tokens that is not actually generating real value in the real world. But I think everything is right now bound by the market, the forces of the market. And that's the simple reality that we live in right now. I do believe that's going to get better, right? Because ultimately, I firmly believe that what we're doing with IOTA and that crypto as a whole serves a real purpose in the world. And I also believe that the impact that we are creating is as important as AI. And I really think that this technology has a real purpose in the world, right? And I also believe that the crypto markets, hopefully early next year, are going to see a recovery, and that with that, this will pave the way for those projects that are generating real value, that have real economic participation of the token in the ecosystem, right, in the real infrastructure, and that those projects are going to succeed. right? And this is exactly what we have been doing with IOTA to position us over the last few years, not to be the one that does the same that everybody else is doing, but pursuing gaming, NFTs, meme coins, AI agents, and pursuing the speculative game, but really pursuing another strategy, which is to focus on real world adoption and to do that really, really well, because that is ultimately all that matters. And so while the market is trying to find the bottom, right, is trying to reprice assets based not just on the general market sentiment, which is obviously extreme fear and extreme emotions right now, but is really starting to understand more that there's real tangible value being created for the tokens and for the market as a whole. I'm very confident that IOTA will be one of these winners, right? Because that is exactly what we are working on. And that is exactly what we believe we are creating here, right? One of the only few projects that has real tangible adoption in the real world, because that is all that matters in 2026, right? 2026 is all about institutional adoption. It is all about progressing in actual physical adoption, right, in the real world, where it is about having a real business model, and it is all about having the token participate in this business model and also be part of the value creation, the value accrual in the entire ecosystem. Right? And this is really going to be the main strategy for us in 2026. That we really position IOTA in a very different light to everybody else, because we have a 10-year track record to show that nobody else has, right? And I think that's a really is a very important mission that we're on, and it is about enduring pain right now. But I'm very confident it will come out better at the end of this journey, and that the entire industry will come out better at the end of this journey, because there's real appetite for these tokens. There's real appetite for projects that create real value. And this is exactly where there is an opportunity for IOTA to position itself. And so that's obviously like a general input to everybody. Obviously, if you guys have any questions or always input, feel free to reach out to me on Discord or on Telegram as well, because I'm always here to answer questions. And so obviously, like, things are difficult, but I think this is exactly where we can work together to help each other as well, right? Because ultimately we will come out better, things will be fine. And as I said, nothing is ever as good or as bad as it sounds, and we will make it. As the picture says there, WAGMI. Let me quickly go through the year. So always, whenever I do these year-end videos, it is always crazy to think what happened at the start of the year. Because at the end, like, we always just focus on what's next, and we're always chasing the next thing, where we don't actually appreciate what's been happening over the last 12 months. Right? And I think 2025, even though price-wise it didn't turn out as we wanted to be, when it comes to execution and delivery and the output that we have delivered with IOTA, I think we're in a better position than ever before. Well, and I think we can be really proud of what we have achieved in 2025, because this is exactly what we have always been dreaming of. So let me just find the screen. So this is just a quick summary of what I was saying. I can really recommend everybody to read this article. I found it very insightful, because it relates a lot of the same sentiment that I think many of us are feeling around crypto, that this is like a transition period that we're going through, right? From speculative bubble towards something that's really tangible, and is also going to be repriced in that regard, right? And so I think this, in my opinion, is the biggest confirmation and validation of what we have been doing with IOTA for a long time. So as I said, I can really recommend you guys to read this tweet. If you can't find it, it's on my Twitter profile, and yeah. So I think, just thinking about it, right? Like, this is what we started the year with. And there was a big announcement in November of last year, but it was IOTA rebased. And IOTA rebased is really the last and the most important step that we have taken to completely reinvent and reposition IOTA in the market, right? Because what we have done before is we had to change the tokenomics of IOTA. to actually introduce an ecosystem fund, to actually recapitalize the project. Because, it's still crazy to think about this, but IOTA started with $500,000 that we raised during our ICO, and with 100% of the token supply going to the community, right? So that was IOTA in 2015. It had a big vision, it had big ideas, it had very little capital, and with those two parts and an amazing community, right, that was really invested in IOTA and its success, we bootstrapped IOTA. So we basically came from nothing, right? And from that nothing, we really built up this entire movement and this belief system of people and of our community, of also big companies and governments that really believe that, hey, like IOTA actually serves a real purpose in the world, and that's why they should bet on it. Right? And so I think it's very interesting to see where we came from, right, 10 years ago, and then also like the transition that we had to go through, because ultimately the ideas that you start with is not the ideas that you end up with being successful with. Right? And for us at IOTA, it was also, for us in the team, it was important to realize as well that we need to make like this fundamental transition on all levels to make sure that IOTA will prevail and that IOTA will also thrive. Right? And so we changed the tokenomics. A large part of the team changed as well, right? And that was really like 2020, where we had to get rid of some people that were not really contributing to IOTA anymore and make these hard decisions. And I think the most difficult, but also the most important decision that we've made is to completely rebase the IOTA layer 1. Because ultimately what we realized in 2023 is you're no longer competing with technology in the space, right? You cannot just come up with very nice sounding words and say, hey, I'm at ZK layer 2 optimistic roll up, right? Like you can't do that stuff anymore, because nobody cares about technology, even though you've been able to hide behind those terms before. Now it's all about competing on the application layer, where it is about adoption and how much of that adoption is actually happening tangibly on the mainnet. And so this realization also made it clear to us that we need to fundamentally change the layer 1 and adapt a new stack that would actually make it easier for us to compete in the market. And I think one thing that maybe many people don't realize, but like this space, like all of these OG layer 1s, they all bet on their own technology stream, right? Like Tezos, Algorand, Cardano, they all have their own smart contract language. And ultimately establishing a complete new paradigm is incredibly challenging, right? It's very expensive, and it's very difficult to make sure that it is all safe, secure, that you're all implementing it in a fast way, so you're also keeping up with the competition, right? And so for us at IOTA, it was about realizing, hey, this idea that we had with IOTA and Corticide in 2017 is no longer applicable to the needs of the market in 2023, right, when we started working on Rebase, and it's definitely not applicable anymore this year, right? And so I'm very happy and very proud that we made this difficult decision as a team, and then also made this difficult decision as a community to completely rebase IOTA layer 1. And we bet on the most exciting technology stack in the space, which was initially developed by Facebook and then was taken over by Sui, and is still DAG-based, which obviously was very fitting with our team. And that's obviously also the main reason why we were able to actually adapt it, because obviously this is very complicated, very complicated technologies, and adapt it to our needs so that we can then actually launch a new IOTA layer 1. And I'm very happy with the new IOTA layer 1, because I really believe that IOTA today is one of the oldest layer 1s in the space without any technical debt. And that's a huge benefit. There's a huge advantage that we have over others, because I can really say that IOTA is production ready, right? When we go and meet a country right now, I'm very confident to tell them like, hey, we can actually get you millions of transactions per year, per month on the IOTA mainnet without any interruptions, right? Without any security issues and without any problems, right? So I think IOTA is a lot more production ready than many of these other competitors in the space. And we are production ready because we have fundamentally transformed the layer 1 by rebasing it, right? And what we introduced in, I think it was in April, or when was it? April or May? I think Rebase went live in April. And what we introduced with Rebase was And we finally had smart contracts on the layer one. These smart contracts are consuming IOTA tokens to pay for the transaction fees, to pay for the computation. We introduced the Move VM. So now we have Move smart contracts on the IOTA layer one. And I think that Move is really the most exciting smart contract language next to Solidity, especially because it's more safe, more secure. It's also not that difficult for developers to learn. And it's exactly what we need for IOTA to be adopted by financial institutions and by governments for their use cases, right? Like tokenization, trade digitization, and things like that. So we finally have programmability on the layer one. The second thing that we achieved, and that was one of the most important promises of 2017, was decentralization, right? Removing the coordinator once and for all, even though we had like this distributed coordinator before. Now it's fully decentralized, right? And I think at this point, we're close to 80 to 100 validators. And what was really exciting about this move is that all of you were now able to set up a validator node, right? You could spin up your own validator. You could secure the IOTA network. All you needed to have a little is a node infrastructure, and you need to have a little bit of stake, IOTA tokens, and you could then secure the IOTA network. I think that's super exciting because now IOTA is really finally fulfilling one of its most important promises. And with that, we also really transitioning away from like this initial crypto project towards something that is much more akin to like decentralized financial infrastructure, right? That's exactly where we want it to be. And that's also being achieved because like the new network is incredibly fast, right? Transactions confirm in less than a second, 400 milliseconds to be exact, and is incredibly scalable. We have like more than 50,000 transactions per second that we're capable of doing. Now we're also introducing a new upgrade sometime in early next year called Starfish that will make the network even more performant and more resilient and faster as well. So I think it's really all coming together that the network is really fast and really easy to use. And the last point, and I think this is probably one of the most exciting one, obviously for IOTA holders, is we introduced staking. So you could finally earn staking rewards by securing the IOTA network, which is one of the most important token utilities that you can have, right? So it all came together with Rebase. And what this enabled us to do is that technology was no longer the issue, right? We didn't need to worry about IOTA not being ready or there being like future technical upgrades. No, now we could really say, go into the market and be very confident and very bold with our statements that IOTA is ready to be built on and you can rely on our network. And I think this is like a huge congratulations and a huge achievement by the R&D team at IOTA. So I think this is really like something we can be very proud of that we have achieved this. And obviously, thank you to everybody from the IOTA Foundation team, but also from the community that helped to contribute to Rebase. So that was on the technology side. Now, obviously, as I said, most of the focus is on the adoption side, because that is really where we compete. Now, fundamentally, a layer one network, even though we like to say it's different, it's just bound to the same rules as every other startup, right? It's about finding product market fit, and it's about testing the feasibility of your product in the market, right? So there's nothing fancy about layer ones in the adoption sense, because ultimately you need to solve problems and you need to get adoption in the market, right? You can hide it maybe a little bit with token incentives and things like that. But at the end of the day, if your layer one protocol does not solve problems, it's not going to get adoption. And I think many layer ones, especially some of the newer ones, are really struggling because they are trying to play the same playbook that was there before, which was about launching all of these different use cases in all the different areas, airdrop some tokens on top of it, and then hope that the adoption will stick. Or if they're focused on different things, hope that the token will pump and then disappear at one point, right? This is all like the playbook that was followed by others. What we have been focused on, and what we started IOTA 5 years ago, is to really focus on supply chains, right? If you guys remember IOTA in 2017, we had adoption cases in all the different industries. It was mobility, manufacturing, and energy trading, and all the crazy stuff. And one of those areas that we focused on was actually digitizing supply chains. And throughout the years, some of these other areas really fell off because there was no product market fit, right? We didn't actually get any tangible adoption beyond the initial proof of concepts in those markets. Where we did find product market fit, and this is really where we have really focused on a lot more over the last 2 years, is in supply chains, right? Is in trade and logistics. And this is where 5 years ago, we started TILIP in Kenya, right? Digitizing trade in Kenya with our partners there, Trademark Africa. Then out of TILIP came Twin, which is now this sort of product or product suite that is built on top of IOTA to fully digitize supply chains. And what Twin does, it has like 4 different segments, right? The first one is trade digitization. What we're doing there is we're getting rid of paper documents, we're digitizing them on IOTA in the form of NFTs or tokenized assets so that they can really easily be shared in a cross-border context, right? And this is exactly where blockchain, like IOTA as an underlying infrastructure, makes a lot of sense, because what we do is we're the single source of truth for this data to be shared with parties that usually don't trust each other, right? As soon as you go across the border, you don't know who you're interacting with and you don't know their trade history and things like that, unless you go through a very complex verification process, right? So this is exactly a market where IOTA, Twin, is the perfect solution for it, because now you can digitize your data, you know the authenticity of the data, you know the origin of the data, and you know that it's tamper-proof. And this idea, even though it's simple, is super complex to actually establish this as a solution as a standard, right? To get the different parties to agree on the same single source of truth without them building their own sort of like permission blockchain and things like that. And so this is where we build up Twin. Twin is also set up as a Twin foundation, but Twin is really a software solution, is like a product suite on top of IOTA to digitize trade, right? So first we digitize trade. The second thing that we offer is tokenization. So we can actually tokenize physical assets, bring them on-chain on IOTA. And then the third thing that we're doing is trade finance. So we can actually feed those assets into trade finance protocols to fund the traders. Right? And this is real yield from the real economy that is now being funded with on-chain assets. Right? So that's super exciting. And then the fourth thing that we're doing with Twin is stablecoin payments, right? So you can actually do cross-border payments. So it's really this product suite that came together. And this is where IOTA really differentiates itself from everybody else in the market, right? Other than maybe Solana and Ethereum, because we really focus on this vertical integration into trade. So I think like a year and a half ago, we just said like, hey, we're going all in on trade. We're going to stop almost everything else, including like a large portion of the ecosystem development, like the DeFi ecosystem development. And we really focus on trade because this is where we have found this initial validation in the market. This is where we have a solution that has product market fit. And it would be kind of stupid for us not to go all in here, because this is a market, or this is a sector of the global economy that makes up a third of the global value, right? Like $30 trillion every year is being transferred or value is being created through cross-border trade. And this is exactly the kind of market where IOTA can be utilized, and where IOTA can see millions of transactions happening per day, because there are so many consignments, so many shipments, so many digital product passports, identities, payments that needs to happen for trade to flow. And so we really saw an opportunity to establish IOTA as the backbone of international trade, and then with that really move forward and dominate that sector, and with that bring all of this value on-chain, right? Whether it's transaction volume, whether it's users registering their digital identities, and whether it's actual assets being tokenized on IOTA. So this is exactly what we focus on. So for those of you who are not aware of Twin yet, I can really recommend you to read this introduction post about Twin. It's also a great website, twin.org, so you can really see what it looks like. Oh, like this picture is not very big. But this is like sort of like an interface, so you can see. And these are real shipments happening in the UK, by the way, right? So real shipments being transferred from, I think, Poland to the UK that are being tracked through Twin. And so that's really exciting, right? So I think it's important for you guys to understand, like, First, we solve the technology problem. Then we focus on the adoption problem. And the adoption problem is where we really bet on trade as the market for us to differentiate ourselves and as the market where we can really find tangible adoption. And then I think what we've really done is very successfully this year is really have a lot of successful adoption cases. And what we've done very uniquely is that with Twin, we said, hey, we're going to set this up as a new nonprofit foundation that will actually set a standard for digitizing trade, because ultimately the IOTA Foundation is just one player in this global market. And this is a global market that is really well established, right? And there's big names in this market that we cannot compete with, but rather we should partner with them. And ultimately with the objective of getting IOTA adopted, right? And so this is why we set up the Twin Foundation. And the Twin Foundation was set up in partnership with IOTA, with Trademark Africa, with the Tony Blair Institute, right, where Tony Blair is a big supporter of this initiative as well, Global Alliance for Trade Facilitation, the World Economic Forum, where the Twin Foundation is actually hosted, and the Chartered Institute of Export and International Trade. So those are the initial founders of this. And then with this partnership with this consortium of partners, we are then conquering the market, right? And I think you guys were already able to see some of these early successes that we have seen with Twin, which I'll go into afterwards. But I think it's important for all of you to understand that there's real validation happening and there's real excitement in the market by this real world institution around what we've been building. One thing that I've been really proud of as well is really with the World Economic Forum and others also writing some thought pieces, right? Thought leadership pieces, where they also showed the opportunity, right? And the opportunity is really, hey, there's $10 trillion in value that could be reduced every year or generated every year if we digitize trade. It's kind of crazy to think about it, but I think this article says there's 4 billion paper documents every day that are in circulation, right? So that's so many documents that can be put fully on chain in a digital format on IOTA and can be easily transmitted and can be easily shared with all the different parties in global trade. And it just shows you the magnitude of adoption that can happen on the IOTA network if we even just get 1% of global trade digitized on IOTA. Then imagine that this will scale even further, right? And I think these institutions being excited about Twin and what we're building in trade is exactly what we need in order to validate this and move this forward in the market. There was also a very exciting article written by the Tony Blair Institute that Twin can really unlock Africa's trade potential. And it goes a little bit into the details of what the opportunity is and what can be achieved by digitizing trade in Africa, right? So it's really about empowering entire countries to trade better, because every country in the world wants to trade more, right? And digitizing trade will be such a huge growth unlock because it will reduce costs, it will increase efficiency, and it will increase trust. And really, IOTA is at the backbone of this. And these are really proud moments that all of us, can be proud of, because ultimately, no other network, no other layer one in this space has this level of recognition for what we are building. And I think this really just shows you that we have made the right decisions in what we're doing and what IOTA should be, right? Because ultimately, IOTA is a general purpose network. It is most important in how it's being applied and where it's being applied. And I think that in trade, we have really found our market. And now it's really about accelerating and moving forward as quickly and as fast as possible so that we are really going to dominate this market, right? I want to be a supply chain guy. I don't want to be a crypto guy because supply chain trade is really where the opportunity is for us to succeed with IOTA. So if you haven't read it yet, I can really recommend you to read these posts. And as you can see, because we have received this recognition, we have landed, in my opinion, this was the biggest adoption case in IOTA's history, right? And it's something that I'm really, really, really proud of to be part of this, right? And let me maybe play this background. This was, wait, how can I make it bigger? I'll just do it like this. And what we were able to do there is we were able to, together with the Tony Blair Institute, we were able to partner with the African Union, specifically with the African Continental Free Trade Area. So think of it like the equivalent of the European Union, right? Where it is about increasing free trade across the entire continent. And one of their main objectives of the African Union is to digitize trade. And through months and months of discussions and presentations, we were able to convince them that IOTA should be one of their partners on their mission to digitize trade. And just think about it, right? Like we were able to achieve partnerships on a level that nobody else can. And I think that's just so, it really feels like we are fulfilling, like we are realizing this vision that we had 10 years ago. Because 10 years ago, it was really about being very bold and thinking big, that we are going to make sure that IOTA gets adopted in the real world. Now, 10 years later, it is actually happening, right? Like this is why I'm so excited about the current state of IOTA, because I can see all of these inbound requests, like whether it's big companies, whether it's governments, that actually are so excited about what we have been building that they want to start using it, right? It's no longer these painstaking processes of convincing them, but it's really about them being excited and seeing what we've been doing in the market and wanting to use our tech. And that's really where we should be at this point in time, right? And this is why I'm very confident and in IOTA and where we are right now. Now, what's going to happen with the ADAPT project is we started out in Kenya, right? Next year in 2026, in Q1, Kenya is going live on the IOTA mainnet. Initially, for the last a year or so, we've been doing trials, or like in this pilot phase, we've been primarily doing flower trade, right? Digitizing flower, the flower trade flow, basically. And now in Q1, all commodities are going to be turned on in Kenya. So we can really say that Kenya is going to be on-chain on IOTA. And what we're doing as part of the ADAPT project in partnership with the AFCFTA is to start to connect the entire continent in this initial phase. First, I'm focusing on Ghana, and then most likely there will be a third country, either maybe Morocco or another country that the AFCFTA is going to choose soon. And then we'll connect them in this initial trial period and really showcase the impact that we are having in reducing costs, increasing efficiency, and then also really connecting the continent a lot more. The opportunity here is that if we do our work really well and we convince the AFCFTA that IOTA and Twin are the right partners to bet on, is that we're really going to connect the entire continent, right? This is 1.5 billion people, and it is 55 countries that they want to connect by 2035. And that's like a huge, huge opportunity for us to connect an entire continent with our technology. And I think that is exactly what IOTA should be used for, right? Like IOTA is really technology for good, because ultimately we are here to change the world, because we really believe that blockchain, IOTA, has the potential to create this impact. And with projects like ADAPT, we're really creating this impact. So I'm really excited about this project, and like we'll obviously keep you guys very much informed and up to date with everything that's happening with this initiative. And you'll hear a lot more over the next few weeks on some of these use cases. What I really want to do next year is we really want to also interview the users on the ground. Like imagine like a farmer or a miner in Rwanda that is mining rare earth minerals. We want to really tell their story as well on how our technology is impacting their lives and making it better, getting cheaper financing, reducing their trade costs, and that in turn also improving their small business, right, and improving their economic prospects. And that's really exciting. This was also a very proud moment where Tony Blair himself also was endorsed and supported the project. So I think these are exactly the kind of partnerships that you guys will see a lot more of next year, because it took us 5 years to deliver Kenya, and it was a lot of work, right? Like Jens and the team have done a really tremendous job there, because I think it was about connecting 34 different government systems, but like very archaic systems, because every government agency uses a different system. We connected them all into the IOTA ledger, and then through trial and errors, we showed them the impact that digitizing trade can have on them, right? And government sales is something that takes a lot of time, right? It's very slow. But once you're in there, you're really in there. I think what you guys can be sure of is that next year in 2026, we're going to see a lot more adoption cases happening on the IOTA mainnet with new countries coming on board. There's already 3 countries that are going to be confirmed, that are going to be connected to the network. And hopefully we'll be able to achieve 5 countries next year, right? Step by step. It's not that you can imagine that there will be millions of transactions all at once, but it's really that the integration is there, and then the growth will happen organically, right? We'll actually see the adoption happening on the mainnet, and you guys will be able to see the transactions, right? So in Q1, Twin is also going to be live on the IOTA mainnet, and then you can really see the trade flows happening in real time, and then we'll connect country by country and really unleash the full potential. We're already having discussions with more countries, right? And so I'm very confident we'll have between 3 to 5 countries that are going to be connected, and then hopefully another 2 or 3 countries where we're going to do pilot phases, new countries that we haven't announced before, to really start this rapid progression. Right? So it took us 5 years to get Kenya. It took us around 2 years for this AFCFTA deal as well, right? And to really convince them of our work and of us as a partner. And then I think this adoption cycle will only increase, right? So we'll really start to see this hockey stick growth, where new countries, where new enterprises will start to connect and want to connect to us organically without us having to reach out, simply because the solution is growing and is actually being legitimized, right? And so this is really exciting, and this is exactly how we become digital public infrastructure. And that is really the biggest opportunity for us in this market. So maybe the last 5 minutes, and these were some very exciting pictures that we actually took with His Excellency, the Secretary General of the AFCFTA. And these are really really proud moments, and also historic moments for us and our adoption in the market. Now, one thing that is very important is obviously, like, we're bringing all this adoption on chain, right? And so no matter what, there will always be transactions happening on the network that are consuming IOTA tokens. One of the important pieces of work that we're working on right now is how does the IOTA token really participate in the growth of this entire trade ecosystem? Because ultimately, these countries will run their own validator nodes, right? They will be staking IOTA tokens, and they will need to do that in order to be part of a network that ensures maximum security, right? And it also ensures neutrality, so that there is no censorship happening, there's no conflicts of interest, so to say, but it's really like a public goods network. And the only reason why IOTA is a public goods network is because of the IOTA token. And whenever we speak with governments as well, they really understand that. And that's one of the reasons why they're also excited about IOTA, because they understand we have this credible neutrality. And so one of the important works that we're doing at the moment is really to tie the IOTA token more closely into what we're doing in trade. So there's really also like a participation and in terms of the revenues that are being generated by all of the fee reduction, or also in trade finance. And so what you guys can expect sometime in early Q1 is really some more details on how that is going to look like exactly, and what the opportunities for IOTA, right? Because I really want to complete this transition of IOTA with what we've done with updating the technology stack and focusing on adoption cases, and then also really completing the IOTA token and the utility of the IOTA token and its participation in the ecosystem. Because I think this is really going to be the most essential element for us to also excite institutional investors and to also excite the broader market that they should be betting on IOTA, right? Because if we generate 1% adoption in global trade, I want to make it very obvious to people it will generate X amount of value for the IOTA token itself, right? So this is what we're working on right now, finalizing some of the details around that. And this is what we'll then also share with you guys and move that forward. As a last point that I wanted to highlight, and something that I think is very important to, wait, let me start at the start here. As a last point, what we're doing as well is we're really bringing all of these assets on-chain to IOTA And what we've been working on over the last few months is really on new kind of DeFi protocols or marketplaces where these real world assets will be listed and where you guys, right, like retail investors or institutional investors, can actually participate in funding these trade finance deals. Why? Because trade finance is one of the most lucrative and one of the most desired asset classes that is really uncorrelated with the market that can pay 10 to 15% APY. And so our objective with IOTA is to really be the network where these assets are being tokenized and where this real yield is being offered and is being plugged into different DeFi protocols. So what you can expect is like new kind of stablecoins, new kind of yield vaults, new kind of tokenization platforms, and also marketplaces so that you guys can also participate in that. And so like in Q1 and Q2 next year, we're really going to introduce these new platforms, because what we have with Twin is we really have an asset on-ramp, right? Bringing tokenized assets on-chain, bringing trade receivables on-chain, and also bringing new users on-chain, right? Real businesses and SMEs that are looking for funding, and what we want to connect the ecosystem to, or that ecosystem to, is then with liquidity, right? Investors that are looking for new opportunities. And I think this is where it will be very exciting to build this real fi, right? This real yield ecosystem to really connect the real world and the DeFi world. And that's exactly how IOTA is also going to position itself in a unique way. And so what you can see here is Salus, which is one of the projects that is actually bringing critical minerals on-chain on IOTA. And they've been incredibly successful. And I'm really excited to see what they're going to do early next year as well, because this is really what the world needs, right? And this is how we are going to show to the world as well that it's not just a fiction created tokens, but it is really real world and real assets that are being plugged into this on-chain world. And that's exactly what you will see with IOTA in 2026, right? We're going to have real world adoption happening with entire countries coming on-chain, between 3 to 5. We'll also have new countries that we are starting pilots with to digitize the trade. You will have real assets coming on-chain, right? Tokenized assets when it comes to commodities, critical minerals, trade receivables. And then you're also going to see new kind of paradigms, new DeFi applications like Salus, like new stablecoins and new yield vaults, where all of you can also participate in this ecosystem, right? And so we're really embedding ourselves into trade, and with that, positioning IOTA also in a new light. And with that, I'm very confident we'll also see a lot of success in the market. So I'm really excited about this. I'm really happy with where we are right now. It's obviously incredibly challenging with the market and everything around that. So there's no denial about that. But at the same time, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture, right? Let's look at where we started 2015 and the big vision that we had there, but we had like nothing to show for. And let's look at where we are right now, where we still have this big vision, but where we're actually making it reality, right? I know that the market will correct itself. And I know that this dislocation that is happening right now is going to be short-lived, right? The market will return. We are going to see euphoria again. And I'm sure that the good times will return again. If you guys have any questions, obviously feel free to always reach out to me. I'll maybe be on Discord as well in a couple of hours and answer some of your questions. So feel free to ping me there as well. Otherwise, I hope that this was a good explainer for you guys, so you understand where we are with everything. And I do hope that all of you guys are also able to take some time off over the holidays, relax a little bit. Don't look at crypto for a little while. Think about the big ideas. Think about how you guys can also contribute to the success of IOTA. And then let's move things forward. So I really want to thank all of you for being part of this journey and for believing in us, right? Because we are fully committed to this, and we are not going to work less because of the market conditions. If anything, I think now is the time to really double down and move forward with conviction and move forward with real dedication. And I think the IOTA team, our partners, we are all fully committed to this mission. And I'm very confident that in 2026, we're going to see really amazing progress on all fronts. And we'll do it together with all of you. And so Yeah, thank you all for being part of this journey. And I hope you have a wonderful Christmas holiday. Hope you get to see some snow, bake some cookies, and see you guys in the new year. Thank you and see you soon. Bye bye.